Hey guys, we're going to talk about sight reading. What can you do to become a better sight reader? What is sight reading? We're going to talk about beginner things, we're going to talk about advanced things. Sight reading is really not only important, but it's really nice because if you have an advanced sight reading ability, you can learn things very fast and you can just take music and read it, and there's almost virtually no limit to how much your sight reading can improve. So it's something that, in the beginning you might find that you're able to go back and look at pieces that maybe you would have, played years ago that are not so hard, and you can learn them in almost a day, or you can just, pick some of them up and read them right away. And eventually you find that you start to be able to read very difficult things just like that. So how do we get there? Because that's what we all want. I think there's a certain attitude to have with music. A lot of people, they like to, this is good, especially for people who are very orderly and trying to do things by the book and with a certain method. Try to learn one piece very well before going on to the second. Do every piece in a method book by order. It's very, very good as far as sight reading is concerned to have a general approach that you just read music all the time. You have pieces that you learn, and but you read music all the time that you're not necessarily learning. So for beginners, you have books, like sight reading books, which give you little exercises that you do every day. That's very helpful for beginners. This is really going to help you. So find something that's at your level. The idea is that they're not things that you practice, and they might seem almost, ridiculously easy. It's because you should be able to play them without practicing them. So that helps a lot. Now this is for beginner stuff, but we're going to get to more advanced, how to improve your sight reading. So at some point you'll probably find that you're able to read things like Clementi sonatinas. Maybe the easier ones. So that's probably I wouldn't say the next step. There's probably an intermediate there. But if you're in the habit of, you just hear something, wow, I love this, go on IMSLP, print out the music. It's all there. You know what it is, imslp.org. You have all of the sheet, and there's very few things that you're going to be looking for that you won't find on IMSLP. So just take it out, even if you're only looking at a few bars or a page, or just a section, or even just the right hand. That's really going to help your sight reading ability. If, once you get beyond those easy exercises in sight reading books, that you just have a habit of constantly taking out music. If you have books, like a library of, whatever you have, go through all the music. I remember doing this. I have a quite good sight reading ability, so I can tell you a few of the things that I did. And one was I remember doing those exercises that I thought were ridiculous in those books for beginners. But eventually I would take out, I had the Mozart sonatas. So I would just start reading them, and learning them, because that's also not too complex. Mozart and Clementi as well. So if you're at a certain level, or whatever books you have that are, especially if it's stuff that you're a few levels past, then go in those books and start to read the music. It's a heck of a lot easier to sight read something that you have heard before. If it's something you don't know how it goes, that can be quite difficult. So, you can practice that sort of thing, reading music that you've never heard, but obviously if you listen to it first, you have a good idea of how it goes, and then just try to play it. While you're sight reading, usually one of the things you do is, how do you, sight read? Basically, you start and you don't stop. You just keep going, but you always have to be looking ahead at what's coming up. So your eye is kind of always a few beats ahead or a few bars ahead, depending on the music that you're playing. Another important thing to mention, this is in general for music, but it's especially applicable for sight reading, is that you hear what you see. That's very important, that you don't see and then play, but you have to hear it before. That's going to help too. Don't obsess over it too much, just do it. Now, if you're finding that, you know, it's not so hard to sight read Mozart sonatas, you know, classical things, maybe a couple of Beethoven things some of the time. But then when you go to read like, you know, Brahms, it's like getting really hard, or, you know, Schumann or Ravel or Debussy, it feels like impossible. It's because you need to play more of that kind of music. You need to play more Debussy. And actually, probably one of the best things that's going to improve your sight reading ability is actually learning contemporary atonal music, because it's so complex. It's going to develop different parts of your reading abilities. That's going to make a big difference. So if you want to improve your sight reading ability, which you should, then you should learn some contemporary music, which you also should. So find some pieces that you like. If you don't want to go, you know, full out contemporary atonal, find modern pieces. You know, I would say you don't have to go all out on the contemporary, but learning to read that kind of stuff will be very difficult at first. But as you develop the skill to read contemporary music, reading Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms and Chopin, you're going to be sight reading that shit in no time. It's going to be super easy. So do learn contemporary things. If you don't want to go all out on the atonal and contemporary stuff, if that's not your cup of tea, I completely understand. It wasn't mine for years, and it still isn't my favorite thing. Although I've developed more and more of an appreciation of it the more I play, and I think that's the case for anyone. Then take modern stuff, take Prokofiev, take even, you know, impressionist music like Ravel, which is rather complex, or Scriabin, even the non-atonal Scriabin. It's very difficult to read. So if this is around your level and you want to improve your sight reading skill, start learning things like, you know, what kind of Scriabin, you know, I mean, the third sonata comes to mind, although that is quite difficult. Maybe the second sonata, because it's shorter, although, you know, that has a quite difficult second movement. But, you know, I suppose you could look at some preludes and things like that. But take a, you know, Prokofiev third sonata, that's a very good one. You know, if you don't like Prokofiev, you haven't heard it enough, because if you hear it, you know, Beauty and the Beast, you don't like it at first, and eventually you'll fall in love with it. So, you know, check out the third sonata. That can be a good way to just start reading things that are less classical and more complex. It's going to really improve your sight reading ability. Take care, and until next time, good luck with the sight reading.